Hello, this is QM, short for Quinn McLeod, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that many people are not talking about but should be talking about, and that is Sony is doomed. Sony is doomed. They are doomed. And you're probably listening to this saying, oh, there's no way Sony is doomed, you know? But they are. Sony is doomed. And before I even go into the details to explain why they're doomed, um, I gave some information over to Rich of Review Tech USA, and he is not addressing the information that I gave him. Now he claims that he's very, I suppose, unbiased, and just basically tells us how it is. He's really quick to say how Nintendo's dropped the ball and whatnot, but he doesn't talk about the obvious things that are happening with Sony and Microsoft in regards to those companies dropping the ball, which I kind of find kind of strange. And I'll go into detail right now. Like I said, Sony is doomed. And the first thing that comes to mind, not even comes to mind, the first fact that makes them doomed is if you take a look at all the signs that show it, you can easily find out for yourself. Sony sold off buildings. They sold off their building in New York for $1.1 billion, and they sold off their building in Tokyo for $1.2 billion. Okay? Now, if you're selling buildings, and they sold them one after the other. So, as you know, if a company sells buildings like that, it means that they're really desperate for cash. And basically, that's really how you can tell. Any company that sells buildings sells them for cash. They don't sell them because they're saying, oh, we don't need them. No, no, no. They're selling them because they have no money. Uh, Going on to the next point, Sony's been shutting down development studios. They shut down the Wipeout developer Liverpool. It seems like people already forgot that Sony has been shutting down development studios. And of course, when you shut down development studios, you also have layoffs. But it's not just with Liverpool. They haven't just been laying off those people. Recently, they were laying off people from SOE, the Sony Online division. People who are typically responsible for SOCOM. They are laying those people off. So you have sold buildings, not just one building, but two of them. You've got the shutting down of development studios and the laying off of people. Then you also have Sony hiding financial data, more specifically on their Vita sales. As you know, last year, Sony had been masking Vita figures with their latest financial reports back then, and they haven't unhid them. They basically merged them with their entertainment division to merge all the financials together, so you can't really tell how bad the Vita is actually doing. Now, if Sony was doing what they needed to do properly, they wouldn't have a need to hide financial data, okay? But they are. And it doesn't even stop there because Sony, um, earlier this year, had uh, had one of their biggest investors come up to them and suggest that they sell 20% of its entertainment division to the public. And Sony is they're open to that. I mean, they're not saying no, we're not going to do that. We're fine. We don't need to do that. No, Sony is open to doing that. Okay, and I have a link right in the description. You can go ahead and watch the CNBC video in which they're interviewing the CEO of Sony and basically saying, okay, why doesn't Sony do this? Why doesn't Sony do that? It's a real issue considering that Daniel Loeb, who's one of Sony's biggest investors, he has over $1 billion invested into Sony, sent a letter to Sony saying, yeah, what you need to do is you need to go ahead and set up separate stock for your TV and music divisions, and then sell 20% of your entertainment division. Now, if your biggest investor is telling you to do this, this is huge. It means that Sony is losing a ton of money, and this is just more evidence that Sony is doomed. Now, you would think that, oh, okay, all this stuff is happening, Sony is turning around, they're making a profit. No, they are not. Sony just recently released their PS Vita TV. This is a big mistake, in my opinion, because the PS Vita TV will cannibalize sales of their PS Vita. It's cheaper. It's $100, and it can play not only PS Vita games but also PS1 games and PSP games. Not only that, but also works as a streaming device for the PS4, which gives it an even added benefit. It seems like it could do a little bit more than a PS Vita, and do it cheaply. And that also goes into the fact that Sony announced a PS Vita Lite, or PS Vita 2000, I think is what they called it, but it's exclusive to Japan. So it's not coming out in the Western markets. That just makes my mind explode. So you're going to release a PS Vita TV that's going to cannibalize sales for the PS Vita, and then you're going to release a PS Vita Lite, make it exclusive to Japan, in a country in which the 3DS dominates, okay? I mean, severely dominates, and you're not going to release it anywhere else. So let's go over everything here, okay? So Sony sold off 2 buildings, and I believe the one in Tokyo was one of their corporate offices, but it was New York building for 1.1 billion, the Tokyo building for 1.2 billion. Sony has been shutting down development studios, the Wipeout developer Liverpool, laying off people at SOE, hiding financial data, open to selling 20% of its entertainment division, basically making their biggest investor extremely worried about the future of Sony. Sony coming out with the PS Vita TV, which could essentially cannibalize sales. Sony, on top of that, still reporting financial losses. They haven't been reporting any profit, and it's the end of 2013 here, okay? And they are still reporting losses. All of that that has happened, they are still reporting losses. When a company is doing all of this, this is showing that the company is in the verge of bankruptcy, just like THQ. They're on the verge of bankruptcy, but yet no one's reporting any of this. Nintendo's doomed somehow. Nintendo needs to do all this stuff to compete when they don't. And yet Sony is perfectly fine somehow, even though all of this stuff has happened. Makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. And Sony is still, they're not turning around. They're still making really poor business decisions. They're still doing it. I mean, look at the PS Vita TV, look at the PS Vita Lite, look at the fact that, Sony is releasing the PS4. Now they claim that, they're not making any losses, or even cutting even with the PS4, which doesn't seem right. And can't really say because their financials haven't been released for the PS4, so we can't really make a comment on that. But it doesn't seem correct. I mean, considering that the Wii U, which apparently is a lower spec console, and Nintendo was still getting, they were still hitting losses on that console when it was being sold for $350. Now Sony is selling a system that supposedly is 3 to 4 times more powerful than the Wii U, which is, at the time when they announced the PS4 back in February or whatnot, it was $50 more expensive than the Wii U. But yet Nintendo was still hitting losses on a system that's less powerful. There's no way that the PS4 would not incur a loss. Sony is going to lose money on the PS4, on each PS4 sold. There's just no way. There's just no way the PS4 is not going to have losses when the Wii U is giving Nintendo losses. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, the PS4 has a 8-core Jaguar CPU. It's got a 7870 or 7850 GPU with a ARMS processor with 8 gigs of GDDR5 RAM, which is not cheap, by the way, not cheap. It's coming with internal storage, coming with a ton of stuff. And Sony is saying, oh, we're not losing any money, but yet the Wii U, which people are saying, oh, it's got like a 4980, or not even that, like a 4250 or something like in the 4000 series AMD GPU, and then it's got like like a PPC 770, I think it is, processor based off the Watson Power 7. and then it's only got 2 gigs of RAM, and it's just DDR3 RAM. It's not even GDDR, but who cares about that? It's got 32 ED RAM built into the processor, and probably the most expensive thing about the system might be the screen. But even so, for Sony to say that they're not getting a loss from that system, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So if you look at everything that has happened with Sony thus far and look at what they're doing now, it's impossible to say that they are not doomed. It's impossible to say it. If you take a look at the sales trends on Sony's consoles, like for example the PS3, even though it was a lot more, it's a lot more successful now than it was when it first came out. It is still third place in the market. It is still third place. Okay, Nintendo is number 1 in terms of sales. In regards to the previous gen, because now we're in the next gen, because the Wii U is out and the PS4 and Xbox One are coming out this year. So we'll say PS3, 360, Wii, last gen. So the Wii sold the most, then the Xbox 360 came in second, and the PS3 came in last. Now, just to let you know that this is not new, and what's going on with Sony is not new. Sony has been going through, for example, what was the first year or two of the PS3 being released, Sony was already going through a corporate reorganization, basically, consolidating markets, divisions within their company, rearranging a couple of things to somehow gain Sony a profit. Right? Sony had already fired their previous CEO. If anyone remembers, Sony had already fired, or actually let him step down, I should say. And Kaz, who's the current CEO now, he has only been the CEO for about a year, or so he says. He's only been the CEO for a year, and Sony has been laying off people since 2007, 2008. What's going on with Sony isn't new. It's been going on for a few years now. What we're seeing right now is basically evidence that Sony is not improving, but no one is talking about it. No one. And now we've got the PS4 and we've got the Xbox One, and based on what we're seeing right now, we're not even too sure how well those systems are going to sell, because it appears as though third parties are still developing games for the current, or I should say the last gen consoles, the PS3 and the Xbox 360. So, whatever the case may be, based on just this information right here, Sony is doomed.